Hey you, yeah, you, the one trying to make a video game. I've got someone here that can help you, and that someone is Intel, which is not a someone, it's a company. But this company, they are going to help you as if they were a somebody and a someone and also a something. Check out software.intel.com/gamedev to find out how Intel is making sure all the innovation in gaming continues to happen on the PC as part of the Intel Game Dev program. Again, that URL is software.intel.com/gamedev. Sign up and start something new. It's the internet, you're busy, let's do this. Round two, actually. We just had a technical malfunction. You'll never hear it. I'm throwing it in the dumpster for good. Welcome to the GamesBeat Decides podcast. It's the podcast where we decide everything about the world of video games so you don't have to think for yourself. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me is...
Hi, this is Stephanie.
And?
Oh, hi. It's
there he is.
Man Wilson.
See, he doesn't like doing things twice. He was just going to give up. He's going to quit any second, you could tell. In today's episode, we're going to go over the news.
It's just been a long week.
Yes, it has. It's not going to end. We got PSX still coming up tonight. We're going to cover that right after we're done here. We're going to also get into some games, talk about throat babies and the patronage system. It's going to be a whole good time, riot, fun.
I don't understand what you mean by throat babies.
No one does, but
we're a lot of mucus.
I love the throat babies.
We'll get into the throat babies very soon. First, though, I want to thank everyone for joining us. You can get more.
Some, like Tumblr meme that I don't know anything about.
No, it is Hideo Kojima, who is an auteur, and he makes video games on his own now. He is.
Is this the thing I yelled about?
It's something everyone. Yeah, I mean, it's a baby in a throat. It's a baby living inside the throat of.
I know what you mean
actor
now.
Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus and the funky fetus.
That's right. So yeah, it's a Tumblr meme now for sure. Okay, let me get through this. If you have something to share with us, you can email the podcast at gamespluspodcast@venturebeat.com. That's the plus sign. We also have a Twitter at GamesBeat and at GB Decides. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, there's an audio version that you could subscribe to. Feel free to do that. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. Finally, if you like the show, rate us on Apple Podcast. That would be very helpful. It helps people find the show. Okay, so like I said, it's been a long week. We haven't had a lot of time to get games in, and yet I've still played a lot of games. It looks like we all have. Stephanie, why don't we start with you? Why don't you kind of go over what you've been playing?
Sure. I still have to kind of catch up on some of the bigger titles this year, but I've been playing a lot of like smaller indie games. Like there's one on the front page of itch.io called Healthy Breakfast, which is this like surreal and cereal, as Jason said in our first take, a surreal puzzle game
pretty good.
Where you're just trying to find like a donut, and it's got this like vaporwave aesthetic with all these colors, and it's just like a really cool chill time, about half an hour, and it's awesome. And I've been playing this Iranian puzzle game, which is sort of this like mathematical geometrical drawing / puzzle solving thing where you're trying to match up shapes by like drawing lines by clicking on an object that's moving. It's like kind of hard to explain, but when you see it, it totally makes sense. It's like those drawing tools where you have like the little circles and you put your pen in it and it like makes a spiral. It's like that, but with puzzles. So.
Huh. All right. Well, that's like so like what was that commercial called? I mean, this is probably way before your time, actually, but there's like that toy they used to have on Nickelodeon, Spirograph something.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
They still have spirographs.
Yeah, I mean, is that the brand name or is that like what the tool's called? I can't remember. Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't
know.
All
I know is a kid.
That is what it is. Okay.
A kid brought it out a couple weeks ago at a party I was at with my kids.
Yeah, that's really fun. It's fun with math.
They had fun with it.
Yeah, that's that sounds cool. I'm interested to see how the puzzles work, so I'm gonna check that out. What else have you been putting time into this week?
This week, I mean, I haven't really had a lot of time.
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly just like little games here and there when I can sneak them in. I'm looking forward to trying out the DLC for the Shrouded Isle, which is from Kitfox Games. It's that cultist simulator. They like reached out to me because I didn't really give them a great review, but you know, I love the concept, so I really want to see where they're taking it. So I'm gonna be checking that out tonight.
Okay.
That was one of your first reviews for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, lots of cults and cats. That's like my GamesBeat brand, I guess.
Yeah, cat beat. Don't beat cats.
Yeah.
Just cover them. That's how she does it. Hey, my cat beats me up, if anything.
My cat punches me in the face.
You're the first person we've ever had to write a disclaimer about cats with.
Yes.
We did?
Only one.
I don't remember this.
Yeah. For any time she covers something that Lee Alexander did, we had to do a disclaimer about how she adopted Lee's cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's a very good disclaimer. All right, I like that a lot.
Well, you know how I am about being transparent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but it's also great when it can be a good, awesome like disclaimer like that. I don't know, it's very fun. I mean, I guess speaking of Lee, she wrote a game, and that's one of the games you've been playing, right?
Yeah, so I actually just finished writing a review for it, but it's Reigns Her Majesty, which is the follow-up to Muriel's Reigns, which came out last year, which is like a mobile game that's like card-based kingdom simulator. It's really awesome.
Yeah, and it's not like a competitive card game or anything like that. It's just like the gameplay, the actions all take place on cards that come at you one at a time, and you make decisions based on those cards.
Yeah, it's like a Tinder mechanic where you
exactly.
have
It's
to agree and
Tinder
disagree.
cards. Yeah.
So, but they added a bunch of new systems in with like an inventory, and now there's like astrological symbols. So like each time you're reincarnated as the new queen, there's like different events that you can trigger. So it's a lot deeper, and there's a lot of Easter eggs. It gets kind of meta. It like kind of glitches out sometimes. But all in all, it's just like a really clever, enjoyable experience.
It looked like when I was editing your review, there was also had some things to say about our society.
Yeah, like when I talked to Lee about it, she really wanted to emphasize that she didn't want it to be like this beautiful feminist masterpiece. Like at the end of the day, she wanted to just create an enjoyable game. She was like, I'm not going to like change the world with my comedy video game, but it's from her perspective, her personality's in it, and it really sort of takes to heart that you're playing from the queen's perspective. So you have to deal with like, the church comes to you and it's like, oh, can you wear like less revealing dresses? Or, oh, can you like, do this or that? And like the king will sometimes undermine your authority, and you have to kind of decide how you respond. And sometimes you have to compromise because you need to keep everyone happy. Otherwise you end up burned at the stake, So it kind of makes the choices a little bit more interesting because you might want to respond a certain way, but you're forced to do otherwise to kind of game the system and get the numbers where you need it to be.
That's it. So do you think you feel the pressure of that stuff when you're playing? Because it's something I thought about when I was thinking like, okay, Lee's writing this game. It's definitely not going to just be like the Pac-Man to Miss Pac-Man like character swap. Like there's going to be it's going to be dealing with some things. But how did it actually feel when you were playing it?
I think it definitely makes some decisions a lot more impactful than they would be otherwise. I mean, there were some decisions that were just general, like, royalty stuff, like, should we have a winter harvest? Like, should we do this or that with our, like, army, which is, gender neutral. But then there are certain decisions where it feels like sort of a personal attack on you, and you're like, So I think it definitely made you feel like you were role-playing as this character, and this was a very specific experience that this character is going through that other characters do not go through. So I think it really grounded it.
And the role-playing aspect wasn't really as big the first Reigns.
Yeah. So like you play the first Reigns, you play this one. Do you almost feel like there's a contrast there that a lot of people will notice, and there's a lot more here? Is it just the systems? Is it just the writing? Like, what is it?
I feel like it sort of takes the first game a little further. When I was interviewing Francois, the developer behind Muriel, I think he's actually just Muriel is just him. But he was saying that he felt like the first game kind of went in all these different directions, whereas Her Majesty is like this really cohesive narrative, so even the development team felt like this is like a one whole story, whereas the first one was kind of like an experiment, like a really awesome and fun experiment, but this one is sort of like a more polished follow-up, I feel like.
I like that. I like Durant's a lot, so I'm gonna check this one out as well. Anything else, Stephanie?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
How about you, Jason? What you been up to?
Well, so we got an expansion for both Elder Scrolls Legends and Hearthstone, so I've been playing those. You don't want me to talk about that because you always get annoyed.
Well, I mean, if Mike was here, I'd let you go off the chain for almost a whole 60 seconds, but he's not.
I know,
so
60 seconds. I'm just having a lot of fun with both of them. What's nice about the Elder Scrolls is this expansion is story content, so there's some really fun puzzles.
Yeah, I mean, give me the high level on these. Like what? Because when you and Mike do talk about it, you guys get into the nitty gritty. But I'm still always interested in like how this changes like how players overall are going to be approaching these games. So like what's the overall on both the Elder Scrolls and the Hearthstone
expansions? Cannibals, which is Hearthstone new expansion, it does two things. First of all, it's kind of a Dungeons and Dragons flavored expansion, and what it's doing is bringing in new legendary weapons and some a new mechanic called Recruit, which brings cards out of your deck onto the battlefield. And it just came out yesterday, and it's got a new single-player mode called Dungeon Run, which is you don't even need any cards to play it. It builds your own decks. It has pre-made stuff that you add as you go through each boss. You fight up to 8 bosses, and it's a lot of fun. I really like that. Clockwork City expansion is going to the titular Clockwork City and Elder Scrolls, and you're fighting against a lot of fabricants, which are different than the Dwarven Dwarmer machines.
So how do you pronounce that word? I can never figure it out. Dwimmer?
I say Dwarmer, but I have no idea if I'm right or not.
Okay.
Pete Hines can tell me next week.
Exactly.
I'm going to talk to him about it. But on top of that, I've been playing Skyrim on my Switch every night, and
good game
in bed, and that's how I go to bed. I play Skyrim, and you know it's an old game at this point. It's an old game at this point.
2011, 2012.
Yeah. But it's still a lot of fun, and the only glitch I'm getting on that little Switch is the lightning bolt spell. It glitches some, and it's like the poor Switch is burping when a lightning bolt comes out.
Well, let me ask, a lot of people, that's been like a key complaint against specifically this version and maybe the VR version. I guess a lot of the bugs are almost exactly the same as they were when the game launched originally. And then the Switch version is based on the special edition, like modern console version. That doesn't bother me like even a little bit. Like I don't even think about it. I play the game. I almost never encountered bugs. I played it more than 100 hours easily, like in its original version. I don't remember encountering really any bugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But does that bother you that they didn't make any improvements or any fixes, at least in terms of these bugs?
Well, I never encountered a bug with lightning bolt on the PC or a console. So this is the first time. So I don't know if it's because there was a problem, it's just an old bug, or if it's just the Switch. I'm just not using lightning bolt. I'm using I'm using fire and ice. And then
I feel the same way. Yeah.
I'm trying to weed myself off Dragon's Dogma so I can get into Nier and a couple other games for Game of the Year. This is the remaster on PS4. And here's the thing that no one was I don't remember anyone talking about when they reviewed it. Maybe just because the right people didn't review it. Maybe I should have. But with Dark Arisen, it's not the open world. It's one island. It's basically a mega dungeon underneath. But I really like that mega dungeon because it reminds me of some of the old mega dungeons of Dungeons and Dragons. It's like you're going into the mega dungeon under Castle Greyhawk. And I'm really digging that aspect because it's, with your pawns, those are the non-player characters who are helping you, and you get to switch them out for stronger ones as you go along in different classes. It's like you're building a party. So you're kind of taking those pawns and decide, okay, this is how I'm going to take on the dungeon for this run. And then we'll go in, and then we'll come back out, and we'll sell our loot, and we'll make our weapons better, and then we'll go back in. And I know a lot of people are saying that Dark Arisen was something that they weren't so enamored with compared to the first game, but I'm really liking this aspect because I really missed the big bad dungeon like that.
I think you should real quick. That was Dark. Say the name again. I can't remember the full name.
That's the Dark Arisen expansion to Dragon's Dogma.
Dragon's Dogma.
It's all it's all together in the remaster.
Yeah, I just get it mixed up with Deep Down. But you should write that. I would actually be interested to read about like your take on that because that is not something I don't think I ever really heard anyone talk about before. So
and then
that'd be
the
interesting.
last game I've been playing has been a little game on my phone called Trido. It's a puzzle game with numbers, and you have to make what is called a Trido by doing a sequence of a 1, 2, or 3, and you drop the numbers down as if you're playing Connect 4. Of course, it's only Connect 3, but you have to connect a 1 or 2 and a 3 together. And while you're doing this, you have to stop the AI from doing it. And so it's kind of like Connect 4, but with numbers.
That's cool.
And
That's
you're only connecting 3. Yeah, I try to read every single little pitch that comes in, and this one came in from this one person game developer, and I can't remember if it was Romania or Bulgaria, and she made this game.
That's it. Again, the name is Trido.
Yeah,
What's it on?
iOS and Android.
Okay, TRIDO with the on the D. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been a fun little game that I've been playing. But yeah, this is the time of the year where I should be playing, Hellblade to check it out, and I should be playing more of Nier to get enough for a game of the year. But I'm enjoying Skyrim and Dragon's Dogma, and I just want to keep playing them.
I think that's fine.
And,
you don't need to play Nier unless it's to help me convince people it shouldn't be Game of the Year.
Well, I need to get a little further. I've almost played enough of it, but I just need to get a little further.
Well, hang on. You got one last game here. Why don't you tell me what you've been doing with Civilization 6, and then I'll talk about Nier, and maybe you and I can go off on that. Stephanie, have you played Nier? I mean, I guess we can.
I haven't yet. I have that. I need to play that this weekend.
Okay.
But your opinion seems to be very controversial.
Yes, it is. So, yeah, I'll talk about that. Let's let Jason go off on Civ 6.
So Civ 6. The first expansion was announced recently, so I've just been replaying that because, unlike the other Civs, this Civ 6 never captured me the same way.
I don't think you're alone on that. I was the same way, and I think a lot of people felt that way.
But now I've added a bunch of mods, and it's going to become a daily play for me again.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. I was waiting for the expansion to kind of get back into it, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. The mods are there as well, and they have tons of mod support. So yeah, and
I know I played with about 10 different ones right now, and I'm going to write this up sometime in January probably. But that's the thing now with Civ. You always needed to wait an expansion or two to really dig into it, but now with Steam Workshop,
it's so easy.
You still need to wait, but that's when. Instead of Firaxis fixing issues that people see, people are just fixing those issues.
Yeah.
Like just little ones. Like, there's this little quality of life mod that lets you start with a builder. That's not big.
That's cool.
But
yeah.
that gives you just a little jump start.
Right.
For those first few boring 10 turns.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to be clicking through those first 10 turns anyhow as fast as you can, so you might as well skip over it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm back all in on that, and I'm going to be playing a lot. And hopefully during the quiet time of January, if we ever get quiet time, I'll write a little bit about it.
I was gonna say, you're talking about finding time for Game of the Year games, but you're also playing Civilization 6, which is just not it's a game that could fill up all of your time if you let it.
Well, yeah, but I never have. But
yeah.
And I'm coaching my kids' basketball team.
How's that going? That's basically a video game. That's basically
into a video game in itself.
Yeah, management sim.
It is. It is a management sim. I spent about 20 minutes today going over drills that I'm sending PDFs out to
man,
parents.
PDF. Yeah, it really is a management sim. Do you have spreadsheets and stuff?
Not yet. I mean, it's only second graders.
I mean, still. Gotta take it seriously, Jason.
If I had spreadsheets for second graders, I would be a very sick parent.
Yeah, without a doubt, for sure. I want to hear that. We're going to do updates on this as the season progresses. So,
are you just drinking out of a jar?
Yes.
God, Jason, that's how I think I have a
You're
couple
not
of jars
Texan.
in my no, hipster. It's very different. You gotta let her have it.
Well, no, it's because I discovered dishwashers for the first time. And I didn't realize that all of my cups would be locked in the dishwasher drying. So.
Well, then it's not a prison. You're the warden. You can let them free whenever you want.
So just a little aside, and I don't know if this applies to other cultures, but my wife being Chinese, the dishwasher it's a dish rack. It's not for washing dishes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So having Taiwanese parents and living in New York for 7 years, I just never had a dishwasher, and I tried it for the first time. It was just in my kitchen for the last 3 months, and I tried it for the first time yesterday, And I was like, this is glorious.
There's an episode of Fresh Off.
Magnificent.
There's an episode of Fresh Off the Boat, and the kids are just in the same place Steffi is at.
And when I hear it, it fills me with an unspeakable happiness. It's just doing chores for me in the background. It's incredible.
It's the this feels like if you ever watch any Mystery Science Theater 3000 shorts, a lot of times they'll have stuff for like old like washing machine commercials and like house product commercials and stuff like that. And I feel like that's what we're doing right now. It's it's magical. It's doing the chores for me.
It's life changing.
Whereas, your mother's in the background telling you that, stuff that white people use are going to make you soft.
I know. She's like, you'll never survive the zombie apocalypse now.
I've always had a dishwasher, and it's because I'm a white kid who grew up in the suburbs. So yeah, I think I was born with one. They just hand you one if that's your situation. So yeah.
So you always knew. You always knew how amazing.
Oh yeah. I still appreciate it. Maybe not quite as much. Maybe that's I'm missing that beautiful aspect of my life where it's like, oh man, my life has changed. But I still like whenever it's going, I'm like, yeah, this is right. This is good. All right. I've been playing a few games.
My kid said I'm not allowed to use it for anything but a dish rack.
That's the rule now, I guess.
Trained him young. Jeez.
He'll learn. He'll learn one day.
My wife. This is like dishwasher talk now, but my wife wants to do everything in the dishwasher, and she grew up without one, and now she's got one. She wants to do like any sort of dish. It all goes in there. I'm like, okay, the big dishes, I'll just wash them by hand. Like I've worked plenty of dishwashing jobs. These ones I can get these done so much faster. Just let me get them done, and put them away. No, she wants to do them in the dishwasher.
I've run the dishwasher 3 times in like the last 24 hours. I'm like, it's amazing. It goes
You'll blunt the
knives.
But you won't have to wash them. Blunt knives, but they're clean and shouldn't do any work. That's awesome. All right.
What are you playing, Jeff?
Yes, I know. We'd keep this show going. So Nier Automata, Automata. I'll never get it right the first time. I've finished my first playthrough A, and I started B just to kind of see what would happen. And I am.
B2?
What's that? What?
Yeah. Oh, I said B2.
Very good. Yes. Yeah. I see what you did there. I don't like this game so far, which is a weird thing to say after you've seen the credits of a video game, as if it's going to change, which apparently it still could. A lot of people told me if I don't like it by now, just to quit, and I feel like I have to see this thing through, because if there's any chance I can understand what people like about it, I have to see it for myself. Jason, you've been putting a little bit of time into it. How much have you played?
Not as much as you.
Yeah, but like, give me an idea where you're at. Like a couple hours in.
Oh, about 5.
Okay. Well, okay. I mean, have you been doing a lot of side quests?
Yes.
Okay, so you're.
Come on, Jeff. This is me. I do all the side quests.
Yeah, no, I know. That's fair. I'm gonna do a lot more on my second playthrough. I did some, and there's definitely good writing. There's definitely some fun sci-fi elements in there. The machines are, they have their religion, and they're alive, and they're having children, and they're putting on makeup, and there's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of meat to what they're trying to go at, and apparently it's going to keep changing and do some new stuff that a lot of like this genre of sort of sci-fi that it's dabbling in that we haven't seen a lot before, because a lot of the stuff we have seen before. So I'm not like having my mind blown at all, or in any way, just from the the storytelling. The gameplay, though, I just don't. The world is barren, and I get that it's that way for a reason. But I don't. It doesn't feel like it's barren for a reason when you're actually playing. It just feels like lazy. And then for example, like all the buildings are completely empty inside, and there's only like a few that you can actually walk inside of, even though all of them have like open windows. The windows are right there, or like sometimes even open doors, but there's just invisible walls everywhere. So it just feels like like slapped together like haphazardly. And then the combat, it's from Platinum Games, so it's got that the combo heavy mashing buttons to get a lot of cool stuff to happen stuff. And I love Bayonetta, and I love Bayonetta 2 a lot more than Bayonetta. And this is not on that level of Platinum Games. It's not, it's not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's not Transformers.
It's not meant to be.
No, I know, but it's also not fun. It's just sort of mindless. It's so mindless that like you can get to a point where you're just like, actually it can play itself. Like you can get mods to do that, like for your character, and put on like, auto combat and auto evade and all this stuff. And I appreciate that stuff because, like, for example, like the evasion mechanic, it's interesting. That is just like Bayonetta. But your enemies don't really convey what they're going to do in a way that gives you a chance to evade them sort of every time. Like you're going to have to guess a lot of the time, or you're going to have to do a lot of trial and error to figure out their patterns. And the fights just weren't fun enough for me to want to do that. So I'm like, okay, I'll apply this thing. But now the game's playing itself, so these fights are kind of even more boring. I don't know. I was waiting for the magic to happen, and it never did. I'm going to keep playing it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it during Game of the Year because I know some people, on our staff still do like it a lot. Mike likes it a lot. I played it because
some people is Mike.
Well, I think Anthony likes it as well. Who knows? Yeah, we'll see. But Mike was like, "Hey, Jeff, you'll like this. I think you will." I'm like, "Okay." And
I like where it plays with different. I like how it plays with different mechanics.
Like what? Oh, you mean like there's it's like a shmup, and then it's like yeah, that stuff. Okay, I agree, and
that's what I like about Nier. The world, the messages. I just like how it plays with the mechanics.
Right.
To me, that's a lot of fun because a lot of games don't change mechanics like that.
Yeah. It's so basically it's a lot of times it does feel like a third person character action platinum game, but then it'll switch perspectives, and then your character becomes basically like a shmup shooter. Sometimes she or he will even go into these big battle rigs and turn into ships and go out and fly just like a shmup. So yeah, I do like that. That stuff's cool. I'm appreciating it more in the early parts of playthrough B because it starts that way, and you're kind of playing from a different perspective. I guess playthrough B does get very similar to playthrough A here pretty quickly. I'm not at that point yet, so right now I'm like, oh, this is different. At least it's not the same thing over and over again.
See, I really respect that sort of subverting game design expectations.
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate it. I'm just not having a good time with it. And I'm not.
Well, not every game is.
Yeah, no,
for you.
Totally, absolutely. I just
like not every game is meant for me.
Right, and I think that's where I'm. I think that's where I'm at. I think I'm at a point where I'm like, this game isn't for me, but it goes so much further. It's like I don't get why anyone is saying it's like so great. I just don't get it yet. I'm trying to understand. I really am, and I'm going to keep trying.
It's like last year was it last year or was it 2 years ago when I kept saying how much I didn't like Titanfall.
Yeah, that was Titanfall 2
actually,
probably.
It was 2014, the original Titanfall.
Oh, it was the original. Okay, yes. So yeah, it was a while ago then. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who are really into Nier Automata are into sort of the aesthetic and like the world and just sort of like how it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really heard anything about the gameplay or the story necessarily.
Well, you'll check it out this weekend.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I do think the character designs are cool. I mean, it's hard not to be like, oh, hey, there's her butt again. Most of the time, like most of the time, it's just like, oh, butt. But then when it's not butt, it's like, oh yeah, okay, cool character design. Okay, other games, Yakuza 0. I started it. This is another game people are talking a lot about for Game of the Year. Kind of like on the periphery of the things that like everyone's talking about. And so I'm like, oh, I'll try it. I'll check it out. I haven't played a Yakuza game before. But I guess I have because I played Shenmue, and you could definitely feel the lineage of that old game here. It's from the same team. It's basically that Sega's Shenmue team became the Yakuza team. I really like how it is a small open world game. It's like a city block, and they recreate it, and it's got the neon lights, and you can hold down the right bumper button to make your character walk slowly. And like he's just strolling through the street, and you really feel like you're in that place. At the same time, it does feel like cheap. It feels like limited by its budget, but I don't know if that's even bothering me because it's very charming at the same time.
My kids are home.
Yeah, it's okay. We can. Yeah, hi kids, hello. But so the budgetary constraints aren't really bothering me too much. I do think that. Not quite as bad as Nier. Like Nier, I'm not sure I'm getting why people are so in love with it yet, but I'm not nearly as far into that game as I am.
Well, I think one thing that would help you Yakuza if you had a lot of love for not only Japan, but been to Shibuya and all that.
I think that does. I think you're right. I think that's a big part of it. It's not like I have a appreciation. I'm not a weeb. I'm not Mike Minotti. So yeah.
Oh, no, he's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, but he'll admit that he's weeb trash. He does every week at this point, but pretty much. But yeah, I don't know. That's not to say I'm like I don't have a fondness for a lot of that stuff. And like when you are walking at night and everyone's out drinking, like all the characters around you are out drinking, and the streets are drenched in neon, and then you go into a karaoke bar and you play the rhythm game, just sing a terrible karaoke song. Okay, that stuff's cool. If it's like a lot of these like side things that I'm doing, I think I will kind of get it. It's just the core gameplay where it's it's kind of a combat fighting beat 'em up, and the main story. Who knows if that's going to be interesting or it's just going to be kind of a silly sort of a Goodfellas type thing. We'll see. I don't know. I want to give that some time too. Real quick.
I hate karaoke.
Oh no!
I bet you. The tragic thing is, you probably have a beautiful voice, Jason.
No, I don't.
It's probably
you have
gorgeous.
To express yourself.
Yeah, you got to open up the chest. That's right.
Yeah.
Back in college, it was the reason why I was a good writer was because I had a face for radio and a voice for print.
Fair enough. I don't know. I feel like it's the dishwasher all over again. Once you discover it, Jason, you're gonna fall in love.
Golden pipes.
That's right. Real quick, the Zelda DLC number 2 came out last night.
Did you get the Master Cycle Zero?
Not yet. It's the challenge you have to do to get it. It's actually pretty tough. So what happens is it's called the Ballad of Champions or something, or Champions Ballad.
Champions Ballad, yeah.
Yeah. You get a trident-like weapon that takes your health all the way down to the minimum. Like you have a quarter of a heart left. And essentially, as long as you're holding this weapon, that's where your life's going to be. So any one hit from any enemy will kill you. But this weapon kills every enemy with one hit, as long as it's charged up. If you use it enough, like back to back to back, it will lose its charge and take a minute to like come back before you can kill people in one hit again. So what happens is you got to go to these different camps of enemies, take them all out, and once you take out all the enemies camps, you do get the motorcycle. I took out one camp, and it was difficult. It was hard. I think a big part of it was I haven't played Zelda since July, and kind of getting back into the mechanics and feeling like, figuring out how to move my character like so he wouldn't get hit, because that's something like I didn't really worry about because I had so much life. I was like, I could get hit. So even when I was playing, it's not a skill I necessarily had. So it took me maybe an hour of retrying these sections to get to a point where I felt comfortable enough to kind of go in and get in these combat encounters and feel like, okay, I'm going to be able to handle myself. That first hour was shaky, and I'm glad I didn't record it or stream it or anything because I would have been embarrassed. Last game, another Switch game, Never Stop Sneaking.
I have a question about Zelda.
Please, shoot.
Why is there a motorcycle in it?
It's his divine beast.
That's right. It's fantasy magic.
Okay.
The better question is why isn't there a motorcycle in every video game, Jason? I think that's what. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you Final Fantasy 15 because they have a car.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't buy it though. It doesn't work for me.
Same for Gran Turismo. It's about cars.
You need a motorcycle though with a little sidecar. Put all your stuff in it.
I wish this Divine Beast had a sidecar. It does not, I don't think. But I want to.
Sidecar is a good drink.
Sidecar?
Yeah.
I've never had one. I don't think.
It's a whiskey drink.
It's a sweeter whiskey drink.
Okay, I believe you guys. I'll try it. I'll have my bartender make one for me. Last game, Never Stop Sneaking. It's basically a Metal Gear Solid sort of clone. No, it's an homage to Metal Gear Solid, and it is an absolute it mocks it at the same time, like in a very harsh way. But it's all done for comedic effect. So, I guess let me just describe the opening sequence. So at the very beginning of the game, you boot it up, and you see this military general on a plane, and he's just walking past his forces or whatever, and the back of the plane opens up, and he just still silently walking back and forth until he sort of walks to the front of the plane, gets sort of prepared physically. You can see him tense up, and it's all PS1 and Metal Gear Solid style graphics. So it's these very pixelated, low texture characters. And he tenses up, and then he just runs to the back of the plane, no parachute, and just jumps out. And he's holding his coffee, and he just gets all makes himself all narrow to go slip through the wind faster, and like drops his coffee mug on like halfway down, and he just keeps doing this until he hits this carrier in the water and just sort of slides across the deck. And he's still this old general in this uniform, slides across his deck, and he just does like the Metal Gear pose, and the camera work is just like Metal Gear, where it's like it goes in tight to his face, and then like he'll like turn to the camera a little bit, but like look past it over his shoulder, and his arm will be sort of sticking out still like an anime character, and then the coffee mug just falls right into his hand, and then he just stands up and like takes a swig of it. So yeah,
that's where you lost me, because a really good sky jumper there would never lose his coffee. What you would get was the coffee cup would be in his hand, but then the coffee would fall down and spill into the cup.
Yeah, that's a good point. But you could tell like he's older, he's out of practice. That's why he's going to the main character of the game, who's not this general, who's going to actually be doing all the special forces work. So the way the game plays, like, I mean, it's definitely this Metal Gear comedy. Like there's Vice President Helicopter is like one of the enemies you're going to face, and like there's another boss called Senators Shoud and Freud. And so
isn't Vice President Helicopter an actual helicopter?
It's an actual helicopter. So and it's a Hind D, which is just straight out of Metal Gear Solid. So yeah, it's set up for all these jokes and stuff. But the gameplay feels very clearly like this was a mobile game. It started as a mobile game. It's from the guy Humble Hearts is the name of the developer, but it's just one dude basically. He's the dude that made Dust and Elysian Tale, which is that Metal Gear that Metroidvania style furry game, I guess is how I would describe it. Which I thought it was fine. I reviewed it. I didn't love it, but it was fine. It was a good game. It seems like he was making this game for mobile, making it for touchscreens, and then he adapted it for Switch, because I think he looked around, the Switch is doing really well. Indie games are doing really well. Maybe Nintendo reached out to him and said, "Hey, you want to make something for us?" And the reason I think it's made for mobile is because it has one touch control. You could just play with the thumbstick. Everything else is almost done automatically. So, for example, you go into a sneaking encounter. There's a guy with a vision cone, walking back and forth in his, at his post. To attack him, you just walk up until you're within a zone, and once you're in that zone, you automatically swing your sword and kill him. If you walk up to him and he turns around and he sees you, if you have bullets, which are very limited, you will automatically shoot him until you run out of bullets. If you run out of bullets, he sees you, he'll fire at you, and then you have to run away. And it's still just all the thumbstick. Then there's like cameras. If you walk past the camera, you'll automatically, if it sees you, it'll automatically drop an EMP, things like that. So it's all like this. You never use any other buttons other than the thumbstick, except for the touchscreen, which actually works in this game. And you can actually move the character around with the touchscreen, which is not something I've ever seen in another Switch game. So, it clearly made for mobile, to the point where like you could see the Crossy Road style cosmetic microtransactions that were built into it. Like you can customize your character with different swords, and like there's different character models, but all the swords are like the funny things that you would see, like the different kind of hats or whatever. Like there's a sword that is shaped like a balloon animal, for example, is one I've unlocked already. So yeah, I bet this is still going to come out on like iPad and everything like that. So at the same time, I'm really glad it didn't come out on those things first. I'm glad it started on the Switch, because it almost makes me feel like I am more interested in the game. I want to give it more of my attention, and it's worthy of that attention. And I'm not worried about microtransactions or free-to-play ads popping up. I just, it's $15. So it seems like a pretty good deal. I've only played through like maybe the first hour, but I'm going to see it through. It seems really good.
Sounds like you had more to say about its first hour than you had about a whole playthrough of Nier.
No, trust me, I have a lot more to say about Nier, but we're going to be doing Game of the Year next week, so I'm holding back. Yikes. Okay. Let's move on to the news. Let's get through this, because we're about 40 minutes in. I want to keep this moving. So let's just start with what happened last night. One of the reasons this week was so busy is because Thursday comes along, we work the whole day, and then the Game Awards happen that night, and there was a lot of stuff. So I think that's right. What I'm going to do is I'll just kind of go through these pretty quickly. If there's anything to say about them, we'll say them. But for the most part, I think we can jump through most of these relatively fast. The first one is World War Z turned into a video game. So the book is now, was a movie, now it's a game. I think the game seems like it's very much based directly on the book instead of the movie. Maybe maybe like a Left 4 Dead style game is what it kind of looked like, but I couldn't really tell for sure.
This reminds me, what was the zombie game that Dean was enamored with from E3 the last 2 years, and that we all kept making fun of him for?
What was it?
It's the Sony one, the one I can never remember the name of. No one can remember the name because it has such a terrible name.
Because it looked like World War Z. Remember with the zombie?
Yeah, I'm just gonna look. Okay, Sony zombie game. What do you got for me, Google? It's here. I see Days Gone. That's right. Oh my, yeah, it's right there. I like read the sentence and glazed over the name because it just doesn't register as a name of something.
Yeah, that sounds like that's already gonna be a World War Z game.
I mean, yeah, this one's officially branded, and zombies do really well, so I get why someone would want to make this. We'll see. I don't know if it's worth being interested in. Too many. I just don't even care anymore.
Well, it's not even too many zombies. It's that you're gonna have this confusion because people who didn't read the book and saw the movie is very different than the book.
I think you're underestimating the fervor that a lot of people have for zombie fiction and zombie entertainment. Like the reason Walking Dead is still like it's like lost a lot of viewers this last season, but still by far like the most watched show on television or on cable. Just there's a huge audience that just wants to absorb everything involving anything to do with zombies.
Yeah,
so,
I know my sister-in-law is one of them.
Yeah, one of the. We should just call them zombies at this point. That's
one of the zombies.
Yeah, the zombies. That's right. Moving on, Vacation Simulator, new VR game from job simulator developer Alchemy Labs, who is now owned by Google, but they are releasing this for everything. They reiterated during the Game Awards that they are dedicated to multi-platform development. Basically, it's what you imagine it would be. It is job simulator, but instead of working a job, you are taking a vacation. So yeah, I'll be playing that. I like job simulator.
You better be able to fire up a Winnebago to an amusement park with a moose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really hope they just take on a lot of the vacation movie tropes and stuff and do them here. That would be very good.
Yeah, gotta have a Wally World.
Yeah, you gotta have the family basically yelling at each other for most of these things. So yeah. Okay, yeah, From Software, I wrote here From Software is making Shadow the Hedgehog 2 or something. That's not true. Or maybe it is. But it was like a 5-second teaser where it was like From Software, and then I didn't write down the actual quote. It was just like shadows die twice or something like that.
Oh right, yeah.
That's all it was. It was like there was no gameplay, there was no CG.
There's not enough there to really talk about it.
Exactly. But I mean, people love their From Software games. They it's the Dark Souls people. We'll see. I
like all their games. I just want to see more.
Yeah, if
any judgment,
I would just well, of course, yeah. I'm not reviewing the game, Jason. I'm just saying it's probably Bloodborne 2, if I had to guess. Campo Santo is making a new game, Into the Valley of the Gods, or Into the Valley of Gods. Not the gods, just some gods. This is the developer that broke off from Telltale. And what did they make? I like their game, but I can't remember. Firewatch, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't actually pay too close attention to this trailer. What did it look like?
It was just basically you and one other character in a valley in Egypt where you're going into pyramids. It looks like you might be an archaeologist.
Hence the Valley of the Gods.
The titular valley, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, with titular gods, I guess, maybe in the background. And
right.
then there's just like some cool music and, standard Campo Santo, like really awesome, like orange and red.
Right. Yes.
Lights.
Yes, their signature art style, which is still stands out so much, but gets copied a million times as well. I thought we'd be waiting a lot longer for a new Campo Santo game, so I'm glad that they're already rolling out with something new, or at least showing.
Yeah, well, this is the whole point of being a small indie studio like this is being able to, you finished up your project, now you go on to the next one, you get a little support from a big party publisher at this point in the game.
Tell that to Jonathan Blow, who took 8 years to release The Witness or whatever.
But I mean, it probably took him 8 years, 7 of those 8 years just to make some of those puzzles.
Probably. It probably took him that long to spend all his money, and then he's like, I got to release another game. Zelda DLC 2 launched. I talked about that. It has a motorcycle. Talked about that. They announced it and then they released it. That was that was the good thing.
Does it go vroom vroom?
I don't know yet. I hope so. I mean, he definitely makes it look like it goes vroom vroom. But I think the trailer had a lot of music over it, so we'll see.
Because that's what my kids will care about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna judge it based on its its engine sound effects. We'll see.
It's also shaped like a horse.
It is. It does, yes, and it has like the. It's not like a full standing horse. It's kind of like if you were to make a motorcycle into a horse or a horse into a motorcycle. I don't know what I'm saying. Basically, yes, I'm glad it has that like same sort of art style as some of the other Divine Beast and sticks out in that interesting way. But this is one of the announcements where they were like, "Oh wait, it's out tonight," and that happened a couple times during the night. We'll get to those.
Those are always the best announcements.
Yes, especially for something like this, the Game Awards, where it's like don't really know what to expect. So if and like almost half the time, at least for me, it's like, why am I watching this? Like I really like being snarky on the internet, so that's why I'm watching it. But then like, why am I really watching this? And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Zelda DLC 2 out tonight. That's fun. I got excited.
I thought it was because you like your job.
Yeah, I want to get paid. That's right. Pay me money, Jason. I'll watch this for money.
Question why you're doing your job in front of your boss. That's always a good thing.
That's not what happened. Moving on. Insane franchise sequel number 6. Soul Calibur.
How quickly he did that.
Soul Calibur 6 got announced last night. The best thing about this is that I don't know. I retweeted this, but basically, before this was happening, Jeff Keighley was doing rounds of interviews and stuff like that, and he went on the podcast, Kotaku's podcast, and he just like made some offhanded remarks about like the kinds of announcements people could expect. And he's like, everyone wants insane franchise sequel number 6 or whatever, and not everything's going to be that. And they moved on. No one made a big deal of it on the podcast, but then a bunch of people covered it as news and were like, Jeff Keighley teases an insane franchise sequel, the 6th in the franchise. And then like Jason Schreier for Kotaku, it was his podcast, like, no, this is insane. Like this is just bad reporting. Like this is a false rumor. And then it looked like maybe Jeff Keighley actually was teasing a 6th franchise sequel. I don't know. I just love that whole sequence of events. That's really fun. And they better put an achievement in the game called Insane Franchise Sequel number 6 because that's too good.
So I'm not much for Soul Calibur, but I'm happy, for people who love it or getting it after so many years.
Yeah, we'll see. The last Soul Calibur that came out, I think, was like a free-to-play game, and no one had any good things to say about it. So we'll see if they do this one right. Tekken did really well for them, so I wouldn't be surprised. They're like, hey, if we just kind of give Soul Calibur 6 the Tekken 7 treatment, if we'll we'll reap the rewards. Hopefully, that's what they're doing.
Notice too, fighting games seem to be on the upswing right now. Justice has been getting lots of.
Street Fighter created a gap. Street Fighter created a room for these other games to succeed by not really delivering in the way the latest a Street Fighter 5 should have delivered. It didn't. So all these other games are getting room to breathe, and they're attracting different people that weren't playing Street Fighter in the first place.
Yeah, it's really great to see.
Good. The last Soul Calibur I played was Soul Calibur 2. So
yeah,
it's been a while.
No, yeah, I fell off too. Those Soul Calibur games were great, and then I just didn't keep up with them. But moving on, Bayonetta 1, 2, and 3 coming to the Switch. 1 and 2 one was like Xbox 360, I think, and then it also got re-released on the Wii U when 2 came out, which was Wii U exclusive, because Nintendo basically paid for it. Nintendo published the game. It's never going to come to anything else. I think a lot of people thought this franchise was dead because, it's a Sega-made franchise, developed by Platinum, and 2 didn't set the world on fire in terms of sales, even though a lot of people really liked that game. But it seems like Nintendo's dedicated to it, and now they're paying for Bayonetta 3 because it's going to be exclusive to the Switch. So,
well, there's nothing wrong with that too. You don't have to be a 6 million copy seller to be a game that's worth continuing on.
Well, yeah. If your first party's paying for it, then definitely, I think that's always going to be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that sort of investment because they not only do you get a game that there's definitely an audience for, but then Platinum continues to hone its craft and can use those lessons for other games they make.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Kind of getting that developer more familiar with working on the Switch may pay off down the line. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, Nintendo's one of the the 3 companies, the other ones being Sony and Microsoft, that can afford to make these loss leaders. Where if they don't make the money they're supposed to, or if they even lose money, they might still sell systems. They give people a reason to want to buy a system. It builds an argument to buy the Switch. So yeah, like they're still going to get value out of this, even if the game itself isn't successful in the terms that maybe an EA or an Activision would want. But
yeah. And then you've also got just, another example of more ports to Switch. But notice how, people talk about ports on consoles to get a little upset, but I don't hear people getting upset about ports on Switch so much anymore.
No, yeah, everyone wants everything that's ever been out to come to the Switch. I'm in the same camp there.
Yeah, well, I like playing games in bed.
Yeah, absolutely. I play them every day.
No, I know some people have their TV set up in their bedroom and they're playing games on their bed.
But that's not. No, but it's so distracting, and it's so much. It's actually like a lot of work to I'm gonna turn on the TV and where are the controllers to turn on that, and maybe I'll put on a headset so I don't bother my partner. All this other stuff, and you might accidentally wake up your partner with the TV, and then you have to deal with that stuff. So I don't know, having the Switch and they updated it so that the dimmest setting is super dim. Yeah, you could play it in a pitch black room and it's not gonna shine everywhere. So yeah,
isn't that lovely?
It's awesome. I'm so glad they did that.
For your eyes, you probably should.
No, yeah, totally.
But...
Totally, but we're fucking up our eyes in a million ways anyhow. We're creative when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, who cares? This is just pile it on, give it to me. Fuck my eyes up. Let's see. Next, Witchfire from Bulletstorm. Humans is how I wrote this. I don't know why. Sometimes I just write stuff and I don't think about it. Basically, the Bulletstorm developers are making a new game. Another one I didn't pay too close attention to, and we could just move on. You can play A Way Out in co-op with a friend who doesn't own it. A Way Out is that it's the new game from the developer of Brothers, Joseph. What's his last? You just talked to him today. Ferris. That's right.
Yeah. Hazelight Studios.
Yeah, Hazelight Studios. That's right. And they previously. This is a studio that made Brothers A Tale of Two Sons. That's what, or is it Sons A Tale of Two Brothers? Yeah, the first one. And now they are working with EA on this new game, which is basically another sort of two things happening at once, but they're in separate locations, and it's a prison breakout game. And you can either as a single player, you can control both over time, or you can do it co-op. And it looks cool. And they showed a new trailer, and no one's talking about it because Joseph Ferris got on stage after being jet lagged, as he put it, and was very passionate, again, as he put it, telling the Oscars to go fuck themselves up, and then saying that EA, who's he's working with, he doesn't care. Publishers fuck up sometimes, and these are all. This is how he put almost everything. I'm not putting words in his mouth too much here. I don't think. But then he doesn't care because EA has treated him so well and it enabled him to pay his team. And they're letting them keep most of the revenue, if not all of the revenue. So I mean, I don't know, Steffi, you talked to him. I know the interview's probably not coming out, yet. But is there anything from that you learned that you would want to share here?
Well, I did ask him to clarify what he meant by the Oscars to go fuck themselves, because I was like, "Did you have a traumatic experience?" Because he has a background in film. He's made he's directed 5 films or something. But he clarified that what he meant was basically. Everyone calls the Game Awards the Oscars of gaming, and he was like, we shouldn't have to compare ourselves to them. Gaming is its whole own thing. There's so much creativity and talent in the gaming industry. Why do we have to have an Oscars? Why can't we just have the Games Awards? So he was basically saying, he wasn't fuck Hollywood. He was just we don't need to compare ourselves. We can just go and do our own kind of awards show without, having to invite these comparisons.
Right.
So that was
this was going to be our second segment. We don't have to talk about it too much, but I just feel like he accomplished the exact opposite of what he set out to do there. Because all you do is draw attention to the fact that you're in some scrap with Hollywood or some scrap with the Academy of motion pictures or whatever, and they don't even know that they're in this fight. They don't care. No one there even knows the Game Awards exist. They don't give a shit. They are just making movies, and that's that. So by going on stage and bringing attention to this thing that the other side, quote unquote, doesn't even know about, it reminds me of how Chicago thinks it's in a rivalry with New York as cities. And New York doesn't know. They don't care. No one in New York thinks about Chicago, and Chicago's like, oh, look at this thing that we do better in New York. And no one in New York is even paying attention. And so whenever someone
sound like you're channeling Bill Simmons right now.
I don't listen to his podcast, but this is probably something maybe he touches on this stuff. Boston's the same way. So whenever someone from Chicago talks that way, I'm like, okay, you're being kind of insecure right now, and that's how it came across as gaming being insecure.
But here's the thing: It's an award show. Who cares?
And that's in the end, that's really the truth there. Yeah.
You know, awards. People who do good work do not need awards for them. And I'm gonna rant now. And this is just based on my whole experience.
Brace yourself, everybody.
Okay. So back in my newspaper days, we had the awards for our professional organizations, and we would sit there and we would, you know, as we brainstorm big feature package stories, people would say, "Oh, that's going to be an award winner," and I always say, "But who cares if it's an award winner? Let's do something that's good, you know." And yes, I have my awards on my resume, but
Daddy's got to get paid, so yeah, put that on your resume.
well, yeah, that's part of Daddy's got to get paid, but you know, I don't, you know. I resented the fact that we would do these big feature packages for no other reason because they would be potential award winners. And people aren't out there making games and making movies. Well, I think some are, but I don't think anyone's making games thinking, oh, we're going to win all these awards with it. No, they're making games because either they want to sell a lot of a product or they have an artistic expression with the game they want to make. I think that's how most filmmakers are too.
Yeah, but like just to counter that, I agree for the most part. But when you have something like the Game Awards and that you do set it up as this sort of broad audience thing, something might happen where Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, might say, "Hey, this game from our country won an award. I understand what that means and can celebrate that and tell my countrymen and women that this is worth celebrating," which he did on Twitter today. He's like, "Hey, Cuphead from Studio MHDR from Canada won 2 awards. Congratulations." Just tweeted that, and now, you know, everyone in Canada's like, "Oh, wow, okay, that's cool. This is something we all understand." It's a very basic concept that most people can latch on to.
That's somebody doing some good staff work for him.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, for sure. But the effect is the same. I agree. I don't think he wrote that tweet himself. He wasn't on his, you know, whatever they have in Canada. I maple syrup phones. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, you know, and we did a story on it because just to show you how rare it is for that to happen. You know, who else has done that? PM in Poland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Poland's it. Yeah.
That's about it. And but at the same time, do we really need world leaders to be recognizing games? Are we
but the point is that
and feeling like we're still in that dark corner in the basement?
No, I don't think that's what that is. I think that's just it just shows how easy the award show is to understand. If a political staff can quickly put together a tweet and get it out and it's all accurate and it all made sense and it supports their political initiatives, like clearly it's just like this very common experience that we all have, and it's one of the reasons why these things will continue to happen. Because yeah, it's just something like even outside of gaming, if it's something that you only interact with very briefly, you know, on a day-to-day basis, or it's something like your government funds, like the Canadian government does, it's like, oh, okay, we could show how our efforts are paying off here in a way that we know everyone following this Twitter account will understand. So there's something there. I get why they happen. At the same time, to bring it back to Joseph Fares, I don't care. I didn't care when he was. I thought that this is fun. I go into these award shows not expecting to feel like we are really celebrating the industry in any concrete way. Maybe I'll see some cool trailers. Maybe I won't. I don't care either way about that. But this does not. I don't think this actually reflects poorly on video gaming. I don't know. Stephanie, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I just think like it kind of. I mean, it was the first time I watched the Game Awards. And I felt very confused by the end because all the trailers made it feel like it was like this E3 industry kind of thing. But then there was also like cultural things they were trying to do with like the orchestra and having Phoenix perform. So it was almost like a mimicry of like a big Hollywood media kind of event.
If anything, it's the MTV Music Video Awards or the MTV Movie Awards. That's what it is.
Yeah, but I was just like, who is this for? And then there were all these like commercials in between and these deals and like eBay and McDonald's. And
those were new this year, yeah.
It was just a weird mishmash of like, it kind of goes back to like what you guys talked about like a couple months ago. I think you and Mike did this whole, are games art or are they products? You know, and it kind of like goes back to that award show kind of encapsulates the feeling of like the confusion there of like, are we here to celebrate the artistic accomplishments and like Carol Shaw and, you know, like these debut games, or are we there to like kind of push products and look forward to this in 2018? It was just like kind of a weird.
Yeah, and you say like, okay, one has to exist for the other to exist, which is what I mean. Those eBay commercials and stuff. yeah, all that stuff's like gaudy and annoying and gross. But like these people got to get paid. They're trying to make money. They're not doing the show just to actually celebrate anything. They're doing a show because they like this medium and they all want to get a paycheck at the end of the day. So I get that stuff. But what you're talking, like the fundamental, incongruity between these two things of trying to be a broad entertainment product in itself, that justifies bringing in an audience that might not care about Carol Shaw, by saying, oh, there's going to be these world exclusive trailers one after the other.
And who is she again for our audience who may not be familiar?
Oh, yeah, like a long-time developer.
Yeah, she was at Atari and Activision.
That's right. Made River Raid, a couple other things. And it was the thing is that those things are really nice. It was nice that they do these things. It was a good moment. They gave her time on the stage, and she's an elderly lady now, and she spoke very slowly, and it was like the show let itself slow down for her, and I thought they did it was pretty respectful. But it is still happening within this framework, this very odd framework of, yes, one sales pitch after another. And like the conversation you brought up that me and Mike had, it wasn't necessarily about how we view games. Are they art or are they a product? It was about how companies and marketing departments and publishers try to sell us video games. And I think they are more confused than they have ever been about like how to approach that. And this show feels like a product, like a byproduct of that confusion, which it has been that way for a long time. And maybe more than ever, that dichotomy is feeling like very noticeable. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to get fixed. I think this is going to continue to be the show that it is and take it for what it is. And then when Joseph Fares goes off and does this weird thing, it's I don't know. I'm having fun because like, oh, this might derail the show, and that's kind of more exciting to me than anything else. So I don't know. We can move on from that, but it was just a lot of people treated it like, oh, this is going to set gaming back, or it's going to set even this dude's career back. I don't think anything. No one's going to remember this by next week.
Yeah, no, it's not going to set gaming back or his career back.
It just doesn't.
What's going to set gaming back is the tax bill, the way it's going to hurt freelancers, because so many people, especially making independent
contract
games.
Like so many contract employees. That's something we need to kind of come back and talk about that in one of the bigger segments. Yes, for sure. Especially as it moves forward. Right now, it's still being worked on. We'll see. Okay, let's get through the rest of these Game Award announcements. Let's see. PUBG Desert Map 1.0. 1.0 launches on December 20th. Desert Map is live on the test server right now, actually. I still haven't got a chance to try that out. I'm going to try to do that maybe tonight.
Evan Lottie at PC Gamer posted a little clip and said, basically, it's turned into CrossFit.
Yes, yeah. Everyone's okay. So yeah,
jumping up and down things.
Yes, it has vaulting now, so everyone's like, jumping over everything in front of them as if they are one of those annoying CrossFit people. Good point.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's a good joke.
It's a very funny little clip.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'll retweet it out of the GamesBeat account later today.
Yeah, do that for sure. I want to see it. Fortnite Battle Royale, the basically the PUBG clone, it's getting a limited time 50 on 50 mode. I think it's live now. Well, no, I know it's live. I tried it. I'm not sure if it's live on all platforms. I tried it on Xbox. It works. It's cool. It's really neat. You see like your whole swarm of teammates like all working together, and you all see each other on the mini map. So you very naturally sort of glom together and go after the other team. And I played one match. We won. It's cool. I don't know why it's temporary. I don't know why they would take this out of the game. I'm sure there's something to that, because PUBG's like maximum team size in most games is 4. In custom games, you could make it as much as 8. We sort of slapped together and duct taped together a 50 on 50 match in that game by doing shirts versus skins, and that worked, but it wasn't pretty. So there must be some reason why they don't just do this as an option permanently.
In the bigger context of Battlegrounds versus Fortnite, it seems like Fortnite's really carving its own place, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I get why that is too. It's much friendlier. Like it's got hit scan weapons instead of rendering the bullets like actually covering time and space. So if you pull a trigger and you're aiming at someone, you're going to hit them every time. And that's something that I think, that's how Call of Duty works. People, if you're coming into these games sort of fresh, that's going to be a lot easier to deal with than trying to lead someone who is running across the field with a pump or with a a bolt action rifle, you're going to be very frustrated with that. If you're like, okay, why am I not hitting them? I got to lead them in like, oh, it drops. There's bullet drop too. Okay, that's difficult. Also, the art is also friendly. It's cartoonish. It's welcoming. It's warm. There's colors. Something PUBG, it's very muted. At the same time, I think now that we see this like desert map, I feel like people are going to see just how much more interesting the actual world and walking around inside of PUBG is. And I think that's going to keep most people who are already on PUBG sticking with PUBG. And anyone who comes in here sort of wanting to play with their friends probably going to end up doing the same thing. But, Fortnite's free. Completely free. There's not even microtransactions, at least yet. So that's going to keep growing. It's going to keep doing just fine. So, yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a fight to pay attention to, though. Isn't
it also good to see these two pushing one another when it comes to how they develop their games?
I mean, I'm still, that's still a point of contention, right? Like, Bluehole, now the PUBG Corporation, they were working with Epic, the developers of Fortnite, to help them like figure out the engine that they're using, which is Epic's engine, to make a game like this, to make a game where 100 people could exist on a server in a huge map all at once. And as Epic was helping them do that, now they're making their own version of that. And are they giving themselves, ideas and advantages before they, populate it on Unreal for everybody? Who knows? Maybe. But that seems like I don't know if they're going to come at the same. Oh, we're pushing each other or what? Maybe when you come out with a 50 versus 50 mode, that's something I think that PUBG will have to respond to. So in that point, yeah, you're right. But I'm still not sure how they feel about one another at this point, and if that animosity is not going to bring about the best results for players as they would have if it were like an actual like fair fight, if that makes sense.
Well, PUBG can always make its own engine.
Yeah, no, I mean totally. Like you're absolutely right. Like if it really comes down to that, just go do your own thing. Yeah. At the same time, it just feels. I mean, I don't care. They're both companies with a lot of money. They'll figure it out. Metro Exodus, not Metroid. Metro got a new trailer. That game looked really good at E3. I think it still looks good. That's nice. Bethesda promised us a safe single player. They did a little funny ad, but basically all their single player games are on sale right now. Up to 50% off, I think, was basically.
What's really funny too is if you check Pete Hines, the head of communications over at Bethesda, he was talking about that outfit that Linda Carter was wearing in the ad. The original Wonder Woman, for those of you who may not remember.
Right. The actress.
And take a look at his Twitter, and it's kind of funny, some of the discussion there.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of that. So yeah, what was the gist? Like, what's the?
Well. So it ties back to she was going to be in Apocalypse Now.
Huh.
Oh, she was?
Huh.
Yeah, but there was a storm, and it kind of, the jacket she was wearing, talking from Pete's Twitter here, the jacket from Apocalypse Now, which Linda was on set for and was supposed to be in until a typhoon screwed things up, and she had to leave to go shoot for Wonder Woman. Huh. And that's the reason why it has all these Unity Vision patches on it.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's neat. I didn't know that. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's those little things.
Yeah, she's been in some Bethesda games, which is one of the reasons she did the ad.
Well, and she's just cool.
Finally, let's get to this. Let's talk about it. The Death Stranding trailer, the latest in the saga of Death Stranding trailers. Hideo Kojima's latest game, his first as an independent developer, essentially, no longer works for Konami. This is Hideo Kojima Unchained.
Is it Hideo or Hideo?
I don't know. I think. Probably Hideo. Yeah. Hideo Games is how I always say it, so I don't know.
It sounds like you're trying to say hideous.
Well, some of the things in the trailer were definitely that. I don't know. Okay, so
it's weird. Set you up for that.
I guess so, yeah. It was it's weird because it's Hideo Kojima trailer. So we don't have to maybe go point by point, but I don't know, Stephanie, is there anything here that you like stuck out to you? You're like, oh God, we got to talk about this.
Oh my God! I mean, it's just a masterpiece, isn't it?
It really, truly is.
Trailer of the year.
We still don't know what Death Stranding is, but we're getting multiple videos. They always seem to involve like a number of one or two key actors, which is and the last one was Mads Mikkelsen, who's Hannibal and a few other things. He was in the Rogue One. Most of them also involve Norman Reedus from Walking Dead, and sometimes Guillermo del Toro, the director, is in there as well. There's also always this baby. Like there's almost always this like little baby in a jar or elsewhere. And I don't know. I don't really get any of it. It's just sort of one visual after another of dudes in the military, people cleaning up some awful chemical spill. Where it looks like they're all in these like uniforms where they're trying to keep toxins away from them or whatever. And the world just looks like it's completely effed up. And then it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. There is the baby in the jar that Norman Reedus is holding, and he is carrying it and then apparently swallows it because in the following scene, we see a giant creature getting built out of smaller creatures who are just floating around in the world, and that freaks him out, and he falls down, and then we go down Norman Reedus' throat, and once we're down in Norman Reedus' throat, like the camera just dives right into his throat as his mouth opens. Inside the throat, we just see a little baby pop up its head, give a thumbs up, and then we zoom right back out. Little thumbs, the cutest little thumbs up. It was the best.
It's like the the little louse-like creatures that eat the fish's tongue and then they take the place of the fish's tongue.
Oh yeah, the little parasites that just sit there, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we know, not to get into like conspiracy theories.
No, do it.
We know that Death Stranding is the phenomenon where whales all just beach themselves, right? And then they all just die there.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like what's happening is probably in some kind of distant future scenario, like humankind has at some point, we're just sort of like throwing ourselves to our doom. And then there are these like Attack on Titan things.
Right.
Some giant thing with a hand for a head. And then, I don't know. I mean, what is it? What is it? I just want to know what it is. Or I'm okay with just not knowing.
Yeah,
I just want those trailers to just keep coming out.
Yeah, at a certain point, is it almost better if the game never comes out and we just keep getting these teases year after year after year?
Can it live up to the trailers?
I don't even know if it has to. I mean, it could, maybe. I think Metal Gear Solid 5 is one of those games that did live up to the trailers in terms of the quality of the video game. I don't know if it met any of the insanity of the trailers. But in its own right, like the build-up that Kojima does at this point, selling his games, is an art of its own. It is worthy of our attention and our time, and getting these prime spots on the Game Awards every year and E3 or whatever. That it's totally worth it on its own. The game could be separate from it. Like, he's really good at this. He's really good at building up, anticipation and confusion and conspiracy theories. He might be like one of the best at it, like across almost any medium. Like, it's so kind of like insane how much fervor he can create. But yeah, I don't know. It's all nonsense, really.
Hopefully we'll get a playable trailer for Death Stranding. That would be terrific. I would love that. Yeah. For sure.
So my question is, if the baby's in his throat or in his stomach, does that mean that Norman Reedus' final form is Fat Bastard?
Because there's a baby in his belly. Are we doing Austin Powers jokes, Jason, on my podcast?
Hey, I'm old and not, I'm not with the Tumblr memes, so I have to go with what I know.
Man. I mean, honestly, Austin Powers memes are probably pretty popular on Tumblr, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay.
Yeah, Steph had to explain Tumblr to me today.
Oh, fun. I wish I would have heard that conversation.
No, you don't.
Okay, we are running longer than we intended to, so let's move on from the Game Awards. Hit these last couple of news items real quick, and then we'll end up... I'm going to have Stephanie explain what's happening with Patreon to all of us. First, though, Megaman is back. I wish Mike were here. Mike is a huge Megaman fan. He was very excited, though, when they announced Megaman 11, which has 2.5D art, which is basically... It kind of looks 2D, but it's all rendered three-dimensionally. It looks really good. I think it looks pretty okay. Mike says it looks great. So I trust him on that for now. Megaman X.
He even wrote a piece defending the art, which is you don't really see.
Yeah, and I think people are actually coming around to what he was to what he was saying there. Even people who were skeptical. I remember Anthony saying, "You know what? I think I'm on board with this." All the Mega Man X games are getting re-released. It's unclear if they are coming out in a collection like the old Mega Man games, or if they'll be like individual releases, but they'll be on Switch and every other modern console. So we'll see those. Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 are coming to the Switch early next year. And yeah, I wrote here, Mike is clearly taking control of reality, because all of these things are what a Mike would want. So
he's ascended. That's why he's not
right.
here.
Exactly. Yeah, he has risen to heaven and is pulling the strings now. So congrats to Mike on that. Finally,
well, good for those people who are fans of the series and want to see more, because so many people felt burned by Mighty Number 9, which was
a bad Mega Man.
Continuation of the original vision of Mega Man.
From one of the dudes that worked on the game early on, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That game was not good. So this is, and Capcom hasn't treated Mega Man very well. For example, they did a timeline video where they went over the history of Mega Man, and it shows all these games coming out year after year after year, and then you get to like 2011, and the way they represented it, like it just sort of scans past, and he's like sitting on like his floating dog thing that he rides, and it's just like spikes that would instantly kill Mega Man all through these years from like 2011 to 2017, and it's like, okay, now we're releasing games again. It's like even Capcom realizes they have not treated it very well. Hopefully this is a turnaround. Hopefully this gets this series kind of back into Capcom's prime spotlight.
The question it's going to be, is what people have always been wondering, is what's a new Mega Man game without Inafune going to be like?
Yeah, I think we saw with Sonic Mania that something like letting people who are passionate about the series, who played it and understood why it was great, can still pay off. So we'll see. I think Sonic Mania might have given Capcom the confidence to do something like this. Okay.
And
go ahead.
And we've done a couple of interviews too about how that happened, what RetroBeat was exactly about, what is happening with kind of this rebirth of Sonic.
Yeah, that's
and trusting these other people to work on it.
Yeah, it's definitely something. Well, you could check out Mike's RetroBeat, where he kind of covers these kinds of topics. He's not here to plug himself, so I'll help him out. We do those once a week, where he covers older games, and a lot of that stuff's about Mega Man this week. Okay, so last story before Patreon. Steam is no longer supporting Bitcoin. No longer accepts it at all. Basically, I don't know if you haven't been paying attention to Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, the digital coin. It's risen up to like $16,000 for a Bitcoin now. This is something that started off.
What is a Bitcoin for those who may not know?
Yeah, that's always a fun thing to answer. It's a it's a cryptocurrency, which means it is a currency that exists because of a cryptographic algorithm that once you start the algorithm, you can no longer control it. So it becomes decentralized. So the person that invented Bitcoin has no control over it anymore. At this point, the only way to deal with Bitcoin is to engage with this algorithm, and the way you do that is to create a Bitcoin transaction, which requires this algorithm to run, and the algorithm is very, very complex. So this complex algorithm is running, and the only way that you can calculate this complex math is to use computer hardware. And this makes it so they could spread the load over multiple computers around the world. People jump in and help with their graphics cards or with Bitcoin mining farms. And the reason they call it mining is because if you help out solve these algorithmic transactions, you get a little bit of Bitcoin, and that's how the economy continues to grow, and people can get in on it. And that's what keeps it secure, because it's so complex that no one person could crack it or anything like that. So that's a crash course in Bitcoin. It's an imaginary money. It's a money on the internet. People used it early on to buy drugs and to do illegal things. And it was successful at that, to the point where it has spread into places like Steam. In 2016, after years of talking about it, really, Gabe Newell talked about it in 2014, said something they were considering. Valve says, hey, we're going to start accepting this coin, this digital coin. So it's imaginary, but all money is imaginary. It just matters, like, if you decide to buy in. People were buying in on Bitcoin, but the problem is people have bought in way too much, to the point where it is now, even before it's a currency, it is being viewed as a speculative investment. So people are getting in and they are buying Bitcoin, and they're not doing it with any intention of going out to spend it. They're doing it to make money. They're seeing that it is going from a couple $100 a few years ago to $16,000 right now. So it's an investment. And that by driving up the cost, this increases the rate of these transactions, and it puts a huge load on the Bitcoin network, which is all these computers networked together trying to solve that algorithm for these transactions. And that causes the fees to go up. So when Steam first accepted Bitcoin, the fee for a transaction, and the fee is always paid by the person who engages the transaction. So if you're going to buy a game on Steam, this would be you, the customer, has to pay that fee. It was like 20 cents in 2016. Since then, as it's increased in value, and there's all these other transactions happening, it was growing. Like last week, I guess it was almost $20 per transaction. So that's on top of the price of the video game. That is the person paying this. So that and Steam seeing this and it's like, okay, that's unacceptable. On the other side of this, there's also the volatility. While Bitcoin does continue to rise, it has seen several like micro crashes over the last couple of months where it'll lose like 25% of its value in a day. And when that happens, you go to make a purchase of a game and you're paying a certain amount of Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin network will secure the value of that transaction for a limited amount of time. But the problem with these transactions are that, again, a very complex algorithm. It takes a long time sometimes for these transactions to go through, and sometimes the value guarantee will expire before the transaction's done. The price will crash, and the person paying will no longer be able to cover the cost of the game, and Valve will have to say, hey, we need more from you. At which point, if the person pays with Bitcoin again, they're going to have to pay that fee twice. So it's like, it's not viable anymore, which, I mean, this is a bigger conversation. We can move on from this, but if you can't use it to buy like something like video games on the internet, like how is it working as a currency anymore? Is it really, is it at this point just a investment? And then at that point, like, wow, how does it have any value? So people say it's not a bubble. John McAfee, the brilliant John McAfee, was tweeting today, it's mathematically impossible for a Bitcoin bubble to happen, which is an insane thing to say. But luckily, John McAfee is an insane man, so it makes sense. I don't know.
This seems right. We don't understand it.
Yeah, he could be. I don't think so. I think a person saying a bubble in a financial instrument is impossible is probably going to look pretty silly at some point in time. I think that's more likely. You're right. I don't fully understand it, even if I have been tracking it. But I think it might be a nuts thing to say that something that people are speculating on can't burst is, have fun. Put your money in there, John McAfee. We'll see what happens.
But what does this mean for getting back to our original discussion here? It just means one less way to buy things on Steam, correct?
Yes. We just lost Stephanie. That's okay. We'll wrap up here pretty soon. What was that you said? How
it just means one less way to buy things on Steam.
That's right. I think for Steam, for Valve, it's not necessarily like some huge loss for them or for the people buying games. I think
it also, excuse me.
No, I just think it's more indicative for Bitcoin of like how it can be used as a currency for actually making purchases.
Can it also be seen as Valve saying, we don't want to, we're also opposed to how much these are driving up the costs of video game cards, and are we opposed to that as well?
I don't think so. I mean, that is another aspect, but Bitcoin's not really a GPU thing anymore. No one really uses GPUs to mine for Bitcoins. That's Ethereum and these other cryptocurrencies that have come up in its place, and Valve has never accepted those. So I doubt that would have any direct link here. I mean, people do they mine Ethereum and then they'll buy Bitcoins with it, so that indirectly linked. But I don't think that's what is happening here. I would expect that it is directly like what it said, the volatility. It's just too volatile. I'm not too worried about Valve and figuring out ways to accept money. They'll figure that out. Okay, last story. Patreon is doing something. I've been trying to pay attention. I do make Patreon donations to, or contributions to, a handful of people, like 4 or 5. Let me explain my understanding to you, Stephanie, and then you come back and actually correct me in all the things I did wrong. As far as I know, I'm making these contributions, And now Patreon is going to be splitting them up into more contributions, and I'll be paying more fees on top of those, or something like that. I mean, it sounds bad, but I don't really get why people are so angry. What's happening here?
Well, it's not that they're going to split up your contributions, but for every pledge you make, you're going to be charged a transaction fee.
Okay.
So,
so like,
basically, what's gonna?
Wait, how did it work before? So like, all my Patreon contributions were maybe bundled up into one.
Well, all your contributions before were still being paid for separately, but the creators were paying them. And so Patreon's rationale was, or what they're saying the rationale is instead of having the creators pay a 2% to 10% transaction fee on each of these pledges, or each of these batches of pledges, they want to just have the patrons pay the transaction fee, so that the creators can have a 95% take home of the base pledge. But the problem is that makes it really hard for people who can't afford to pay more than like $1 per creator, you know, because they're being charged like for every single pledge they're making, so that like adds up very quickly.
Or people who just wanted to pledge $1 as a sign of support.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. They're going to end up paying $1.38, and which like adds up, you know, over multiple creators, because not everyone doesn't just like most people don't just support one person on Patreon.
Right.
They usually support like a couple, you know. So
Rowan Kaiser, our guest post editor for the PC gaming channel here at GamesBeat, he wrote a tweet, and I think this kind of summed it up pretty well. It's like, if Patreon is a service where a bunch of people with a lot of money are supporting a lot of people, this won't be a big deal. But for poor people, this is going to be an issue. And I think that situation, that you know, that second possibility seems like actually what is happening. It feels like a lot of people on Patreon are there because they see other people struggling to, you know, find a way to get paid for their work, and they empathize with that because they are often in the same situation, and they're putting $1 towards 3 people, 4 people, and once those things start adding up, they could feel like, oh, I got to maybe cut back on one of these or 2 of these, and that could end up hurting the people that Patreon says that they're trying to help here.
Yeah, there's some speculation about how, because this is like, there's some speculation about how Patreon would prefer to have fewer creators who have more patrons each, so that they look more successful, versus like right now there's a lot of people with Patreons where maybe they're just getting like $40 a month, you know, and that's helping them pay for like a phone bill or like utilities or something, you know. And then because this really like heavily penalizes people who are just donating $1 or $5, you know, or, you know, anywhere within that sort of lower range. So it seems really odd. Most of the sentiment online is just, this is like really terrible. People are posting screenshots of like patrons dropping out, and creators even saying like, yes, go, please don't donate to me through Patreon. I'm going to set up a PayPal or do something else on my website. You know, like other developers are saying they're not even going to go on Patreon, even though they were thinking about doing it.
One of the streamers I support is shutting hers down.
Yeah. There's a couple people I talked to who are shutting down their Patreons because they're just like, I don't want to do this to my patrons. Even though like one person only had 4 patrons, and she was still like, no, I just don't support the way this model works.
This always reminds me that like we don't own any of the platforms that we're making content on a lot of times, especially these individuals who are publishing to YouTube. And I mean, the reason a lot of these people that are making YouTube videos ran to Patreon is because YouTube is a very Byzantine way to make, like, this Byzantine organization that doesn't explain its choices and how it's paying out people who are making a lot of money for YouTube. And there's, you know, a lot of people below that aren't making quite as much. They have a smaller, more dedicated following, and they could take that somewhere else and say, hey, pay me through Patreon, and I'll create content on YouTube. But it's like when you run from one platform you don't own, YouTube, to another one you don't own, you're going to end up in the same situation all over again. And it's just, I mean, it'll probably be a bigger problem once net neutrality does actually go away, because then it'll be really hard to do a startup for one of these, maybe to start your own platform or to start a new platform that will actually treat people well, you know, 100% of the time for the rest of eternity. I guess that, you know, this brings me to another question to you, Stephanie. Has anyone been floating ideas for a Patreon competitor? Are there existing ones that people are going to?
So there's one called Coffee, maybe it's Ko-Fi. I don't know. It's Kofi, where the idea is like you can buy someone a coffee, you know, and a lot of people have been saying to donate through that instead of Patreon. A lot of people
Drip.
have been,
Yeah, I saw this name Drip. I wasn't sure. I honestly saw it when I was prepping for this show. What is that? Is that new?
I'm not familiar with Drip.
Okay, Jason, do you?
It's a rather new competitor.
Yeah, based on the context I saw was, I hope Drip is good because I'll go to that instead of Patreon. So it made it sound like it is something that is in the works and maybe a direct response to the Patreon fallout, which I feel like is a common thing that happens on the internet. We just went through this with the Reset era coming out of the fallout for NeoGAF. Again, these things might be this sort of response to the internet or something on the internet screwing up could go away once net neutrality is no longer a thing. Because again, you have to be entrenched and have your relationship with Verizon or whatever going beforehand to really get that fast internet. Because otherwise, you'll have a slow connection and then this stuff won't work. So I don't know. It makes everything on the internet feel very tenuous and ominous. And yeah, I have a lot of anxiety about people making money for just in general. I want people to get paid. I really like the idea of Patreon because I'm like, yes, just fund people. Like, people are making stuff. Go give them money. Find new ways to get money.
My former coworkers who started Retronauts,
yeah,
they're now on Patreon, and that's how I support them.
Right, like the ad model has broken down completely. It's a very tough business to try to make money just selling ads on the internet. That's not really viable for anyone anymore. So how are people going to get paid
for sponsorships?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it works for us to to a point, but it's like anyone that can get direct funding, that's another really good viable alternative. But these models, they haven't been really sussed out and worked out very well yet. So something like Patreon can come along, attract a lot of goodwill, and then implode a little bit, and it just makes me worry.
The other thing I like about this is, as somebody who consumes a lot of podcasts and a lot of articles and short stories, I've got people who are writers who do news, writers who write fiction, and it's me saying, I like your work, and I like your work so much that I'm going to keep paying you directly to keep creating it.
Yeah.
And there's something about that. It's very old school. It's like the old patron model, that's where the name comes from. But there's something about that to me that just, it feels like I'm connected to them more than just being a fan of their work.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the indie devs were saying. They were saying, you might not be getting the most, actual monetary value out of a $1 donation, but it's just sort of a vote of confidence. It's saying, I like the work that you do. I want you to continue doing it. I want you to be able to support yourself. And it's kind of like it's almost like an emotional donation. It's just letting them know that there are people out there who are listening or watching or reading or doing whatever.
And I think we're really in a point on the internet where that is what is popular. People are finding a lot of success on Twitch and YouTube and in writing, in podcast, by building a connection with a group of fans, and they make their group of fans. They give them names. Like every Twitch streamer has a different name for the people that subscribe to them on Twitch or whatever. They make you feel like you're part of the group, part of the family. And one of the main reasons they do that, Twitch tells their streamers to do this, is because that is how you get them to say, oh, I want to be, if you're making money, then I feel like we are all succeeding. That is one of the models. If you look for it, you'll see it everywhere on YouTube, on Twitch, and podcast. Yeah, I know. Someone needs to change their smoke alarm.
Yeah, come on, do that. I don't want you guys died in a fire.
Okay, Dad. No, it's fine. I don't know. It just chirped real quick. But yeah, it's. You see it everywhere, and when you see models like Patreon, where it's one of the only other ways to really capitalize on building up these groups of followers, then I don't know. It really does, like I said, it makes me worry. It makes me concerned about people eating, people paying rent. People are doing good work, and they should be getting compensated for it, and it just always feels like that stuff is just on the edge, and we don't know how long it's going to last. So Yeah. Any final thoughts on here before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, if you've got a Patreon and you're going to go to another platform to try to find it, be sure to just broadcast it.
Yeah.
Make sure folks know.
Let us know. Okay. Let's wrap this up. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Before we get out of here, I'm going to have Jason and Stephanie give a little bit of plug on like where you can find them if you're interested. Stephanie, we'll start with you and tell us about IndieBeat actually.
Oh yeah, so I have a new column called IndieBeat, which runs every Thursday, and I'm just trying to find sort of like new. Oh no, I wonder if it's me. Sorry.
It's okay.
But I'm just trying to highlight some independent developers who are like, in the middle of developing their projects. So whether you're a student or you're just like an indie dev who's currently working on something cool, you have a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever, I'm interested in talking to you.
Or you're just self-funding.
Yeah, or just self-funding, or if you have a Patreon/drip,
Coffee.
So always looking for people to talk to and looking for new games to learn about and play. And you can find me on Twitter at SwayJuChan, which is SWEIJUCHAN.
How about you, Jason?
I'm on Jason_Wilson_ on Twitter, where I talk about games and sports and politics and grammar.
Hearthstone. He talks about Hearthstone.
I talk about Hearthstone too. And, I don't write much these days, but, you see me in every piece that's on GamesBeat because I'm the one who's, trusting these guys to go out and find the good stories.
That's right. He edits almost everything we post. I am Jeff Grubb on Twitter. I also have some stuff going up on YouTube, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb, twitch.com/Jeffrey Grubb, or /Jeff Grubb, excuse me. I want to bring back PUBG Family Dinner. Looking to do that at some point in the near future. It's the busy time of year. It's been the busy time of year. Once we kind of get on the other side of Game of the Year, I'll be able to maybe start that up again. We'll see. Yeah, and we'll be back with another episode next week. I guess we should talk. I guess we'll see. I don't actually know how that episode will work. The standard episode, me and Mike crank one out really fast on the side. We're going to be doing a lot of Game of the Year recording next week, and those episodes will go up over the last week of the year. So look forward to that stuff. But if we can't get an episode out, I apologize in advance, but I think we should be able to do something. I want to make sure something goes up. But other than that, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week, and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.